What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the End Goal podcast. Today I have with me Zohra Lasi.
Hi, I am Zara. I am an associate therapist. I mostly work with individuals, couples here and there, families sometimes. Don't necessarily focus on minors, but sometimes I'll work with minors. Mostly work with relational issues, being Desi and South Asian. That's a really big part of our mental health journey. So, enmeshment, codependency, stuff like that. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds great. Zohra, thank you for joining me today. I want to tell people kind of how this started or how this conversation became to be because there's a there's a little bit of fun in this. So I was scrolling on TikTok one day and I came across this account. It's called Therapy Therapy.
Uh-huh.
First of all, you put any word and sh and the same end of the word, it becomes South Asian. So I came across Therapy the same way I would
Mhm.
go on to TikTok Shock and I came across your account. I immediately just paused to listen because this was also conveniently timed around the time when I was also, while I'm in therapy, just thinking about more of South Asian, the South Asian culture
Mhm.
in general, trying to one learn more about it, of like how other people grew up and experienced their lives, etc. Not
Mhm.
just my worldview based on my experiences. I was like, what have other people experienced in the past? How similar are they to mine? How different are they to mine?
Mhm.
Things like that. So then I came across your account. Super chill. Listen to some of the videos. Interesting.
Yeah.
And immediately, I think after 5 years, I was like, I really want to talk to this person, but I'm so scared to reach out. And so my
We're
cousin
scared to
is a
reach out?
psychologist. So scared. So scared. Afraid. And my and this happened in this was in January. So I was talking to my cousin and she was like, who's a psychologist, and she gave me like one of the biggest gut punches that I needed, and it was very well timed at the end of the year or beginning of the year.
Okay.
And she said, "You need to adopt a different mantra if you're going to do this podcast.
Mm.
You need to have a little bit of Delulu and adopt the mantra that people want to talk to
Yeah.
me. And um and if I reach out, they will respond. But if I never reach out, they will never respond."
Mhm.
So I was like, wow, this 1.5 hour call that I'm having with my cousin who's just beating beating and forging my mind into what I
Yeah,
needed to do
she's
to reach
giving
out
you a
to. I said, "You know
reality
what?
check.
Fine."
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, "So this is how other people do it." Because I think I would thought I needed a specific level of clout
Mm.
to reach out to people who don't know me specifically. Like if for some reason you were already part of my network
Mhm.
or we'd already chatted somehow in the
Mhm.
past and then you were starting to do this and I was like, "Oh, that'd be great. Get Zara on here." And then there's already rapport there. But this is completely
Yeah.
new like
Yeah.
interaction. And so I was like, I don't know how to do this. I think I spent like 2 days on an email. Like, do I do it? Do I don't? Do I not? And then Monday morning, I was like, just on my phone. I was like, this was Monday morning, so already my brain is
Yeah.
blank. You know, you like there's less influence on how you feel the first thing when you wake
Mhm.
up because you're just fresh.
Mhm.
So I was like, I woke up, I just hit send, and I threw my phone away for a little bit. And the second thing she said was, if you don't get a response,
Mm.
follow up,
Mm.
because a lot of the times people just don't get it and don't see, like, everybody has a large inbox.
Mhm.
Like, we all know people have large inboxes now with, like, spam and marketing and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Somebody's trying to get a hold of you. I'm trying to get a hold of you,
Mhm.
things like that. So Thursday morning, I was like, "Oh, should I send one? Did she see it and did she just not want to? Man, do I not have enough?" I would all these, like, ruminating thoughts. I'm a ruminator.
Mhm. Me too.
And then
Yes.
oh, bam, there you go. Um, and I was like, "You know what? Same thing on Thursday. Don't think about it. Send,
Yeah.
leave it." And then Thursday afternoon, you responded. I was like, "Oh my god, the follow-up worked."
So
Everything they said about following up
can
works.
I make a confession?
Sure.
So when I read your email, I also freaked out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was like, what
That's
was
fair.
happening? Because when I started my TikTok, I wasn't thinking um, followers, clout. I was thinking, okay, I really feel passionate about talking about Desi mental
Mhm.
health. There's not a lot of people talking about it. And I just feel like somebody needs to say it, you know? And so that's what I
Sure.
was doing. I wasn't expecting somebody to reach out to me for a podcast. So when I read your email, I was
Mhm.
like, this is great. This is fantastic. But I'm so nervous. I'm freaking out. That
Yeah,
just,
it's very new.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very, very new for both of us, but I know I'm glad we're here now,
Mhm.
and that is for everybody just a little bit of this is how we got
Yeah,
here, and then let's go from here. I wanted to
yeah,
ask, for people listening and for myself,
yeah,
why did you pursue being a therapist?
yeah,
And specifically, maybe, like, how did you or why did you pursue it in the space of South Asian mental health?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a long journey.
Yeah.
It starts with me having my first panic attack. So prior to my panic attack, honestly, I was very kind of oblivious to mental health. You know, even though it was around me, I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't a normal conversation in my household.
Mhm.
And then one night, actually, I had my first panic attack and I thought I was dying. I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack
Wow.
before, but it is very consuming. It like your
Mhm.
heart is racing really fast, you're sweaty. My panic attack went to the degree of I was kind of blacking out. And it was scary. It was really scary. And I was very lucky because my sister is a doctor and she was at that very time doing her psychiatry residency or like a rotation.
Mhm.
So my sister and I, we shared a room, we shared a bed. And so I'm like heavy breathing, thinking I'm about to die. And I kind of like, hit her like I'm about to die. And she's
Mhm.
like, no, you're having a panic attack. This is not a heart attack.
Very
Yeah.
calm. Just very calmly telling you, "You're
Yeah.
fine. You're fine," and you're just like, I don't feel like this."
Which and I needed that. I needed her to be calm because if she started panicking,
That's so true.
then
Yeah,
it's surely something bad, like if she's
sure.
panicking. So that's where I was honestly like kind of exposed to mental health and what just kind of the power that our brain has on us. And after that, I
Mhm.
became obsessed. I was reading it because I was really honestly trying to understand my experience, right? Like, where did
Mhm.
this come from? How did this happen? Because prior to my panic attack, I was a confident friend. Like my friends would be panicking with presentations in school, and I'd be like, "I got this. I'll present your part too." I was that friend. And then
Yeah.
since I had this panic attack, I completely lost my self confidence. I was always kind of nervous, anxious that this would happen again. I would make a fool of myself. People would be watching. It just the rumination. My mind just kind of went into.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so then I started researching. I started my own therapy. My sister was a huge part of this process. And yeah, then I just couldn't stop. And then because I was getting all this information, I started seeing it everywhere, right? I started
Yeah.
realizing, okay, this is not me. This is not just my experience. So many people around me experience it. Then why are we not talking about it? Like
Yeah.
we talk about the flu more than we talk about mental health. We talk about, you know, on the spectrum, like smaller health issues, like a cough or something like that, more than we talk about this thing, which literally makes people feel like they're dying,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where it started. It became just something that really I gravitated towards. And then I got the opportunity to move to the US. My family got their green card. And I was like, that's perfect because when I had my panic attack, I was in Pakistan. And
Mhm.
I guess that's context. That's also probably why I wasn't seeing it a lot around. There was not a lot of conversation around it. Um, and even though I was really interested in this subject, I didn't think I could pursue it because, again, I was in Pakistan. I didn't know
Right.
what the education looked like and stuff like that. But just coincidentally, that was around the time when I moved to the US. And I was like, okay, now I can do this. Now I can pursue it. It's funny,
Mhm.
I was thinking between psychology and economics, which is on the completely opposite spectrum. Uh,
I think respectfully, you chose a much better path than the other one.
I think so. I have no regrets. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that you said,
Mhm.
mainly because as soon as you started talking about panic attacks, it took me back to when I first realized what anxiety attacks were.
Mhm.
Because I was also very fine with public speaking for a while.
Mm.
In college, I was that guy who loved going up in public
Yeah.
speaking or, like, just doing class presentations, and I would love to be that guy who could, like, he knew everything that was on the slide behind him, and he would click the button, stare at the crowd, and he just knew exactly what's gonna happen, how it's gonna happen.
Mhm.
A very perfect thing,
Mm.
if you can see where I'm going with
Mhm.
this. And, started my first full-time job. Uh, I'm an accountant, and being an accountant means there's a large learning curve when you're actually working and stuff like that. So, I started not being very perfect, which, I mean, even in college, like, I failed my exams that I didn't get economics, failed that exam
Yeah.
easy, things like that. Like, I was already well acquainted with failure, but this was, like, a different kind because accounting was easy.
Mhm.
Taxes were easy going in, like, even if I got the A's I needed, etcetera, so nothing ever felt hard.
Mhm.
And then you go into the working world with people who are much, much more competent than you are, even at your same level, and or, you know, I see my director as a fresh associate, I'm working directly with the director,
Mhm.
and she's just ripping apart the tax return I did or whatever it is, and it's like, this pressure that I put on myself
Mhm.
to get everything right, even though there's absolutely no way as a fresh 2 months in tax accountant that I'm gonna do this tax return correctly. I still get notes back. Now I'm 6 years in, and now I'm a bit more sensitized to it.
Mhm.
But back then, it was like every time I got an email from her or anybody
Mhm.
with changes, it what I know now was it was this level of anxiety building
Mhm.
every time
Mhm.
with, like, the fear of, "Oh, I made a mistake.
Mhm.
Oh, I failed.
Yeah.
Oh, there's like a" I'm not being scolded by my parents anymore, but there's still this level of, like, the reaction is the same as being scolded by your parents. I'm doing it to myself. I'm now scolding myself.
Mhm.
And that's kinda where my first anxiety stuff happened, which was, you know, crazy to think about,
Mm.
back then. The I think the funniest thing in that for me is and I'll see with one of my friends who's a senior associate, like, 2 years younger than me,
Mhm.
and he's like, "I got this email from the director, and I just don't feel like working out." And I'm like, "Brother, f fresh associate. I was living at home. I walked to the gym for a workout, but I took my work phone with me because it was busy season, so I like to have my work phone in case of any emails or pings or whatever." Shout out Microsoft Teams. We hate that sound. Shout out Outlook. We really don't like that email sound anymore. But I saw my director's message come up on my phone as I was working out.
Mhm.
It was like an email, and I, like an idiot, checked it because also I was like, I know there's
Yeah.
changes, and I won't be able to finish this workout because I'm gonna keep thinking about the changes.
Mhm.
So I checked it, and it was like 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever it was. It was just a whole list of, like, things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I was like, quite literally, I tried to work out for 5 minutes and then I left.
Mhm.
I just walked back home. I was like, my focus is now lost. My motivation is now gone. I
Mhm.
should just probably go and just do this work that somebody else wants me to
Yeah.
do. That's the only way I can get over this anxiety is just by correcting the mistake, for lack
Mhm.
of a better word, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then didn't have anxiety attacks for a while, had one again, same, work.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so I don't think this is the job for me if I'm getting anxiety attacks like this. I'm still at the same job. But, you know, different conversation. And what I find and what I wanted to get to was I just had one a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
Again, not with work, different work.
Mhm.
But I was like, wow, it's really interesting to analyze, at least to me,
Mhm.
the triggers, the not sorry, I don't like using that word.
Mm.
The inciting incidents
Mm.
that then like cause the anxiety and then seeing like, oh, how does it manifest in my body?
Mm.
So that's what I've loved about researching this,
Yeah.
but in myself. Um, but yeah, I didn't know what anxiety attacks were until after college and I started working also.
Mhm.
Just like I didn't know what anxiety was.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was one of your things or somebody else that they talked about where like um oh no, it was Dr. K,
Mm.
Andrew Huberman podcast, I think. And they're talking about how men like they adjust their environment
Mhm.
to then help manage their emotions.
Mhm.
So, like, instead of internally managing it, like, if you're upset at me
Mhm.
for something that I said to you,
Mhm.
I would try and fix that thing for you. You're happy, and now I'm good,
Mm.
like that, right?
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Is that why I felt like no stress growing up in when I was, like, in high school and college and stuff until I started being on my own? Because I was like, everything's just managed for me.
Yeah.
My environment's managed for me by my parents, a sheltered living.
Yeah.
College was starting not to be managed, so it was fine, but up until then, I was like, "I don't have to stress.
Yeah.
Everything's fine because nobody's upset with me. Nobody's mad at me. When somebody's mad at me, ooh, ooh, the
Mhm.
heat,
Mhm.
the the the
Yeah.
rumination, the all that stuff starts." So, that was an interesting thing that I found in myself and other people.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to many people who actually have the same type of attacks or things like that
Mhm.
as much. To your point, people don't talk about
Mm.
this. Man, this is where I wanna go to next. People don't talk
Yeah.
about this. I like to talk
Yeah.
about it. Unfortunately, I self-deprecate a little bit too. So people are like, "Oh, he's just like, haha, trying to be funny." I'm like, "No, I just want you to be comfortable in this conversation, we can talk about
Yeah.
it."
And
Right?
can you imagine, like, for your first anxiety attack, for my first panic attack, it felt more scary because nobody talked about it, right? We did not know what
Right.
this was, which made it even more scary. And what I often notice it starts with fear and then it turns into shame. For me, that
Mhm.
was a big part because then I was thinking, am I weak? Am I broken? Is something wrong with
Mhm.
me? Right? And then you slowly start to see this kind of new version of you. I feel like, I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel like you are somebody before your first panic attack or anxiety attack, and then you're a different person after your first panic attack and anxiety attack because that
Yeah.
experience opens up a whole world that kind of requires you, forces you to go deep and think about it,
Mhm.
and then you're kind of opening these cans of worms that were so suppressed, which is probably where the anxiety and panic came from to begin with. And then
Mhm.
you change, you become a different person. At least that's what I felt like. I know I became a very different person after that panic attack experience. And like you said, I wanted to talk about it too. I mean, I'm a therapist, so it makes sense that I really want to talk about it. That's why I went into this profession.
Yeah.
But we really there is a huge gap in the Desi kind of mental health sphere, where even though there are so many people like you and me that are experiencing this, we're still not talking about it.
Mhm. Yeah. There's this shame is an interesting thing.
Hmm.
Shame is an interesting thing because, you know, I felt like I think I had this thought in 2024, and I don't know if it was correct. I think I just had the thought of we've lost a level of shaming that was good for society, but we didn't lose the kind that was bad for society. We lost the kind that was good.
Yeah.
And but like, oh, we both need water.
Hmm.
Okay.
Wait, do we have
Okay.
the same bottle?
Oh my god, we all
Stop.
walleying?
Yes.
Love that. Funny enough, I didn't get this for myself. I like somebody gifted it to me before like Awalas were even
Oh,
popular. It was just part of a gift basket, and I was like, that's fun. That's fine. I like
they were
that."
ahead of the game.
Um,
They were
a little
this
bit,
product.
a little bit, bro. Honestly, I don't know why it works because I'm like, oh, this just feels like a fad, and I never really got into like fad products. But
Shame.
this one just feels like it works. Shame. Yes. Thank you. So the thing with the idea that I had was, yes, there's a type of shame, like a group shaming that used to happen in the past that would make you not behave the same way going forward,
Yeah.
and sometimes a good way. And the way that I thought it was this current attention grabbing culture, which is like do the most outlandish thing you can think of in public.
Hmm.
You don't have any repercussions because you're recording it. Nobody wants to be, and people who don't want to be online don't want to make a
Yeah.
scene for it to be on the internet. Don't want to go viral for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
And so the people who generate this type of behavior content don't really get shamed out of it.
Hmm.
I was like, "Okay, so that kinda shame we're missing because we don't have the communal, like, 'Hey, I did this thing,' and your 5 friends are like, 'You should not have done that thing.'
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
cool. Don't do that," kinda
Is
thing.
that really shame though? Because
I feel like well, maybe it's embarrass
embarrassment and shame
maybe
often
it's
kind of go hand in hand. But
yes.
so I don't think shaming works. I don't think
Mhm.
shaming makes people do one thing or the other. I think that sometimes it actually increases people's anger and resentment towards society, and then that pushes them to some extremes, you know. As
Yeah,
Desis, shame is a big part of our culture. We grow up with a
yeah.
lot of shame oriented language, so much so that then that just becomes our language. But I don't think shame leads to long lasting change. I think that if a group of if a few of my friends are coming up to me and kind of confronting me about something I did, I can take it as, oh, they're trying to shame me, or I can take it as, oh, they care about my growth. I think these are two very different things. If I take it
Good point.
as, oh, they're trying to shame me, guess what? I'm going to get defensive because shame
Mhm,
is not, it doesn't feel good. And when we feel anything
mhm.
that doesn't feel good, we create protective mechanisms to protect ourselves from that feeling that doesn't feel good, right? So if
Yeah.
I'm kind of in this group confrontation where everybody's shaming me or I'm taking it as shame, I'm going to shut down. That is not going to be a productive conversation. It's not going to lead to change. I might change my friend circle and repeat the same behaviors with other people. I might just avoid, right?
Mm,
Versus seeing that situation as, okay, they're not trying to shame me, they care about me. They want me to
mhm.
grow, they want to see me change. Does that make sense?
No, that's a very good point, actually. Shaming would then cause you to shut down, get defensive. Getting defensive may cause you to lash out or avoid the situation altogether,
Hmm.
in that way, also avoiding the people who brought that upon you.
Hmm. Yep.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Hmm.
I don't think I now don't I also don't think shaming works. I think what I was thinking of was, like, what you were talking about
Yeah.
of well, what I guess what I was thinking of was, like, this, like, shared or this community aspect of, "Hey, this person did this thing.
Yeah.
We don't think that's a good thing. It's not good for
Yeah.
them. Let's go talk about it. Let's go talk to them about it." Um, let's say me and my 5 guy friends, were out and we say something wrong to this wrong person, or one of us says something mean to the other person that everybody's like, "Nah, I don't think that's cool."
Mm.
Right? I guess there's a way to bring that up that's not shame. It's, "Hey, let's hold him accountable.
Right.
Let's try and make him aware. Let's not say it in a way that's feeling like we're attacking him and or shaming him."
Yeah.
But if I am the person who said it,
Hmm.
what do I feel in that moment? What am I supposed to feel? Like, do I feel embarrassment? Do I
Yes.
feel rejection? Do I feel invalidation? Like, I feel like maybe the conversation is how we decide what we feel?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's that choice that we make in that moment, right? I can see this confront. So I do agree with, yes, people who are confronting us, maybe they can be careful about their language. But I think that this hyper focus or hyper awareness or language is also not very healthy because when people, we want to allow our community to just kind of be themselves without having to be super conscious about the words we use. And oh my God, I said this because when we focus on the words, then we're missing out the context, right? So I
Mhm.
think there's a
Yeah.
responsibility on the speaker's part, but there's also responsibility on the receiver, the listener's part, where in that moment I can make a choice. I can say, okay, I'm going to see this as shame and I'm going to go into a shame spiral, which is like you kind of mentioned earlier, it's not going to help. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to get defensive. I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to withdraw, right? Or I can
Mhm.
be present in the situation. I can acknowledge that this is making me feel a little ashamed, right? We don't want to deny our shame. Shame is a normal human emotion. So we don't want to deny it. I can acknowledge that. And then I can say, but I know that this person is not trying to bring me down. They're actually trying to uplift me. They're trying to help me. So we can make a choice in that moment. It takes some time. We have to build a muscle. But yeah,
Mhm. What does building that muscle look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think allowing yourself to have these difficult conversations. I think that when we kind of go into shame spirals, we do often avoid and withdraw, right? But if we break out of that cycle and create space for ourselves and other people to confront us, exposure can help us build that muscle. Having those conversations
Mhm,
can help us build that muscle instead of avoiding it, right? So while it's making me
mhm.
uncomfortable, I'm going to sit in it so I can build that muscle. Kind of like you go to the gym, right? You're working out.
Yeah,
It hurts. It hurts your muscle, but it also makes it stronger.
definitely.
Pretty much the same thing.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay. Well, guys, we just spent 15 minutes on changing how we think about shame, and I think that was 15 minutes well spent right there. Um, Similar to your story about your sister being there for you, I have an older sister.
Mm,
She's the person who I look to for everything.
mm,
I'm the younger child, she's the older child, and she's the elder daughter archetype. Let's put it that way. And in just over time, I've
mm,
noticed how she and I
mm,
behave differently.
mm.
Raised by the same
Yeah.
parents, generally, you think that, "Oh, they raised us the same. How did we turn out so different?" Right? And then once I had that thought the first time, I was thinking, it was not the same. It's not the same. We're 2 completely different people,
Mhm,
and so probably we received anything from the world differently as well, whether it's parents or people from the outside or each other. Um, can you could you kinda go into how, like what I'm trying to put this into words, and I had words for it, and now they're leaving,
yeah.
but how do the same siblings in the same household, how can they differ?
Mm. So many factors, right? First and foremost, gender. Your sister's a female,
Mhm,
you're a man. Um, Sibling position. There are different, I think different people would answer differently depending on their theories that they kind of align with, theories or things that we study in grad school. But sibling position is kind of sometimes a psychoanalytical a thought process, an Adlerian thought process, meaning the older sibling will have a different take on things than the middle sibling and then the younger sibling, right? So that I do think that the sibling position has an impact. Um, I also think that parents are different parents to each child. So your
mhm,
first child is really your experiment, but also the first time that you're experiencing this deep happiness of having a child, right? So that's the first child's experience. The middle child, you've done it before, you know the cute phase and you know the toddler phase, right? So you're kind of not maybe you're probably excited, but maybe not as excited, right? And then by the time the third child or the fourth child come around, you know it. You know you're not
yeah,
super maybe scared or afraid, so maybe you might have low anxiety with raising a baby, but at the same time you might be more distant than maybe you were with your first child, because with your first child you had all this anxiety, right? So you
mm,
were hyper kind of conscious and aware of their movement and whatever, but with the fourth child, whatever. Right? Like kids cry
yeah,
all the time. This is my
yeah,
fourth, right? So many factors kind of play a role in that. And there's
mhm,
this constant debate in the therapy world between nature versus nurture, meaning like, are we born with this or do we learn this? So I think that there's both, right? So we are
yeah,
born with some type of a personality, and there's a lot of studies that kind of that speak on um, that kind of prenatal, or like the when the child is in the womb, what their experiences are. Who knows, all of those things probably impact the personality that the child kind of comes out with. So many factors that impact, that
mhm,
lead to different siblings seeing things very differently.
yeah. I guess the biggest impact not the biggest impact, the turning point for
Mm,
me in this topic was when a lot of women came out and started talking about being the eldest female daughter in a household.
mhm,
Because up until then, you didn't really get a lot of conversation around the topic anyway, and to this point, I also don't see a lot of I at least haven't seen a lot of men saying, "Here's, like, the oldest man in the house," kinda thing, but also TV shows kind of dealt with that, movies dealt with
mm,
that. Didn't really deal with the eldest daughter in the house. So a lot of accounts, people, professionals started talking about, "Let's think about how the difference between being the eldest female in the household, eldest male in the household." And I was like, "Oh, interesting." And I started reading all these things, and I was like, "This," and then I finally started talking to my sister.
Mhm.
Fun fact. Um, we're great, we've always been great, but we never really talked about these things until we both hit, like, an adult threshold of, like, okay, we're both mature, and then we started talking about these things. And she was like, "Yeah." For the most part, it was like, yeah, all that stuff's kind of accurate too, and even with her, and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy."
Mhm.
Um, the the type of responsibility you take for your parents,
Mhm.
the idea that, like, I always said this as a joke, but I was like, "No, my parents go to my sister for everything, I'm chilling." And then when they do ask me for something, it's like taxes or, when my dad wanted to get a home set up for his desk for work, he asked me instead of my sister because 'cause I'm the tech guy in a sense.
Mhm.
So that kinda stuff, I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'm there for it." But then everything else, they go to her,
Yeah.
whatever it
Isn't
is.
it
And I was like,
interesting
"Oh,
that they come to you for solution-focused things, things that have a solution? And
exactly."
I don't know your sister, I don't know that dynamic, but I wonder if they kinda go to her for more open-ended things where there's more kind of reflection involved rather than a fixed solution. I don't know. I think
Mhm.
that that is sometimes the dynamic that I see is that sons, because men in general are kind of conditioned,
Task and solution oriented, right?
which is something you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier too, where the perfectionism and stuff, as long as you had a solution for something, you felt good. But when you were kind of thrown into the
Mhm.
outside world where you were like, how do I fix all of this? That's when the anxiety came.
Yeah.
But versus girls, we were kind of put in these abstract situations like handle the family, right? What the
Mhm.
heck does that
What does that mean? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
So
How do I handle auntie? I don't even know
right,
her.
right. So girls just kind of had to mold themselves into whatever the environment
Mhm.
needed them to become, versus boys were
Mhm.
given more solution focused things that had a solution. So
Mhm.
it's interesting.
Wow. Yeah. What are, I guess, in your
Hmm.
experience with either the research that you've done, the studies that you found, the information that you found, um, what are the kind of the traits that manifest inside, say, like, the eldest daughter of a household versus the eldest male of a
Yeah.
household? Are there, like, specific traits that are different and that are not shared?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, one thing as you were talking about the eldest daughter um, kind of dynamic, I remember in grad school, my professor said
Mhm.
something that really stuck with me. It was a family systems class, and she said, "It is the eldest daughter that inherits all her mother's trauma."
Mhm.
And with that, the eldest daughters often become an extension of that parent figure.
Mhm.
So you some traits, and these are nuanced conversations, different households will experience different things, but what I often, and even my eldest sister, right, she became a parent figure to me. She was a parentified child.
Mhm.
She was the first child
Yeah.
to be parentified. Compared to the eldest son and the daughter is more likely to become the parentified child. Parentified children are children who play the role of a parent when the parents are
Mhm.
either physically absent or emotionally absent. This is the sibling that is going to become that caregiver to the younger siblings.
Mhm.
So it's more likely the eldest daughter that's becoming
Mhm.
parentified compared to the son, versus the son, you might notice, is more kind of like that golden child. He is the one
Yeah.
that agrees with everything that the parents say. He's the pride and joy in some
Mhm.
ways, the
Yeah.
one that's high achieving in athletics and extracurriculars and maybe even academics. A lot of the times academics, he's
Mhm.
given kind of more free range to explore that, while the eldest
Mhm.
daughter is at home figuring out household stuff.
Mhm. Mm. Wow, I can see that in so many places now.
Mm.
That's crazy. Don't wanna dox anybody, but wow, that's that no, I as you were talking, I was like, "Okay, so this person, and this person that I know, and that person that I know, and that person I know. Oh, look, there's a mirror. That me, I know me. Oh, that's me." And so, I'd always, I guess, you know, I, growing up, would slightly joke, probably not a joke at this point, or slightly joke was like, my sister's the one who raised me, because a lot of it was like, if mom and dad were ever mad at me or ever scolded me or whatever it is, and I didn't know how to process that or how to understand that, and then I would, being a man, she'd be like, "Listen, you and dad are both men, and you're very stubborn men. You guys butt heads on a lot of things.
Mm,
This is going to happen."
mhm,
And so she would have to be the one to kind of like make me understand.
mm.
She's only 2 years older than me, but she would have to be the one to make me understand. And I'm like, how do you know all this stuff in the first place?
Yeah,
Like how like what are you seeing that I'm not?
yeah.
And she was the first one to tell me that like I needed to go to therapy.
Mm,
She was the first person to tell me that like I might need this, I might need that. She's usually the first one to tell me these things.
mm.
And even she told me to go to therapy for years, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And now it's been like the best decision I made in 2024. So there you go.
Shout out therapy.
Um,
Everybody should do it.
s
It's great. It's very helpful.
I agree. I agree. I've now been a converted proponent of it,
Oh, mm,
for now a year and a half.
yeah.
Um, at least for, like, I guess, I have been learning a lot of emotional I've been developing emotional maturity and emotional capacity through it.
Mm,
I think that's the biggest thing it's done for me because it is currently talk therapy. It's not really any other type of, like,
mhm.
psychoanalysis or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting to see the relationship between me and my parents, me and my sister change, me and my wife change, and all that stuff just by doing this.
Mhm,
And then it kind of got me to think, like, based on how I grew up, and this is what I'm going to therapy for, what traits do I have that were, like, learned, behaved, like, like, traits that I wasn't born with? Like, what events happened that caused me to behave a certain way, that caused me to internalize
mhm,
and
mhm.
now feel a certain way?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I wanted to lead us next is,
Mhm,
when you have children of immigrant families,
mhm,
the older generation immigrates here.
mhm.
Either the kids are very young when they move here, or the kids are then born here. Are there like maybe traits that are more often found in these immigrant children than um, maybe people of a different ethnicity who are here, whether it's the um, Caucasian ethnicity who grows up here and is here, and this is their culture, or um, Hispanic, Black, whatever it is. Like, is there a specific type of trait that, like, hey, we see this a lot in South Asian, like immigrant children, whether it's high levels of anxiety, high levels of imperfection, early parentifying,
Mhm.
things like that. Are there traits that are like that? And if they're not, please feel free to correct me. But I guess my question has been like, are there similarities that you guys see?
Yeah, yeah. When I think of the word traits, it feels a little more permanent, something that we're kind of gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to be with forever. So I don't see it as traits, I see it as learned behaviors. But I do
Okay.
think there's a lot of learned behavior, which one of them, it's funny, my partner and I were talking about it yesterday, is this sense of urgency that you will see in immigrant households, Desi households. There is a long history of
Mm-hmm.
why we have this sense of urgency, and this is what it looks like, right? I'm planning my wedding, and I'm reaching out to different vendors, figuring out, all of that stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
have a mix of different kind of ethnicities on the panel.
Mm-hmm.
My South Asian vendors are very much, hey, we need an answer right now. You need to tell us right now.
Yeah.
If you don't tell us, somebody else will take your spot, right? Versus
Mm-hmm.
my other vendors that are non-South Asian, they reached out to me once and they kind of were like, okay, they'll make a decision when they were, but when they make that decision. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the sense of urgency that
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that I see in immigrant children and households in general. Is there is this urgency to do it and do it now, because
Yeah.
if I don't do it now, then somebody else will take that resource away, which ties into that scarcity mindset, scarcity living. Resources are limited, and if I don't
Mm-hmm.
take whatever I can as soon as I can, somebody else will, and then catastrophe, right? Me and my family are
Mm-hmm.
gonna be, our survival will be threatened. So that's one thing that I often
Right.
see in immigrant households is this urgency, emergency. Everything is catastrophized. Everything feels like an emergency.
Mhm.
The other thing that I notice is, the parentification that we were talking about earlier is children tend to sound more adult like even when they're children, so they are a lot more responsible because immigrant parents, they're trying to make a living in this new country. They don't know the country,
Mhm.
they don't know the culture, they're having to figure it out, and so they're putting a lot of responsibility on their kids to take care of other kids, like their younger kids, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
while I can see that conceptually as a therapist, it's also very damaging for those children because it's taking their innocence away, it's taking their childhood away. Um, Children are going to be adults at some point and they're going to have adult responsibilities. Childhood needs to be the time
Mhm.
when they can be carefree and explore and be curious, right? But when all these big adult responsibilities are put on children, they don't get time to be curious. They
Yeah.
don't get time to explore. They don't get
Mhm.
time to develop their individual sense of self. Now their identity is I'm a daughter and I'm a sister,
Yeah.
right? It is not I'm an individual. And so that
Mhm.
really is a loss that a lot of Desi kids feel in their adulthood.
Yeah. Wow. N the first thing you said about the sense of urgency,
Mhm.
I think probably anybody who's listening to this who's of an immigrant family could be like, "Oh, yeah, no, identified, clocked it easily." Um,
Yeah.
I'm I'm a I'm the younger son. My brother-in-law, he's the younger son. My wife, she's the older daughter. When I first met her, I was like, "You exhibit quite a few of the traits that my sister does," eldest daughter of an immigrant household. When I met her brother, my brother-in-law, I was like, "We're very similar. We have no sense of urgency. We don't really stress that much. We're very chill and relaxed, and we're like, we'll get it done. We're fine. We feel very confident and competent in our capabilities."
Mhm.
Whereas my sister and my wife are like, "We need to do this now. Can we do this now?" Like, or when we do it, "Did you ask all the questions? Did you make a list? Did you" like, no, there's all this, like, organization and urgency and sense of management that comes in with it, and I'm like, "I just can't do that. That's so overwhelming. Like, I need you to stop," you know? So I found that very interesting. I feel like it's almost like the older sibling says, "I need to be all these things for my parents and my younger sibling."
Mhm.
The younger sibling's like, "I don't really have anything to do, so I guess I am gonna chill. I guess I am gonna be curious and creative. I guess I am gonna try and find a sense of identity
Mhm.
because I don't have to do anything else
Well,
right
and it
now."
really depends if that younger sibling is a brother or a sister, because
That's so true. Yes,
the
yes,
brother is more likely
yes.
to feel, I don't have anything to do, while the younger sister is more likely to feel, no, let me help my older sister. I don't want her to
Mhm.
carry this alone. I'm the youngest
Yeah,
sister. So
yeah.
when my sister was in school, like getting her, doctorate or whatever, I stepped into her shoes. The parentified
Mhm,
shoes that she had to kind of take on, I took on because I was like,
mhm.
again, as a daughter, I was raised with kind of that hyper awareness of my
Yeah.
sister's mood, my mom's mood, my family's mood, right? So it really depends. As the youngest
Mhm.
son and the brother, you may have felt like, okay, I have nothing to do. But if you were a daughter, things might have looked different.
Very true. No, that's so true. How on that similar topic, what is it like in terms of communication with the parents that's, like, different or unique to the circumstances? Because when I think about it, like, I can only speak to my own experience. I don't really talk at home. There are different reasons for that, but it was also, like, my sister, she talked to my parents. She's the one who, like, had things to chat about and was chatty and had, like, things that she wanted to talk about, stuff from school, stuff with friends, like, she just talked. And so my parents was like, "Okay, cool, my sister's talking." I didn't really talk unless I was asked a question, right? And so when she went to college, it was 2-year gap, so then I was the one living at home, she was in college. And then I think I was like, "Okay, it's a bit too quiet in the house. So I guess I need to talk to also entertain my parents
Mm,
in a sense because she's not here." And then every time she visits home,
mm,
I saw this pattern of, okay, she's home, I just don't talk. I just let her talk. I let her interact with them.
Mm,
She'll go spend time with my mother while she's cooking in the kitchen. I'll be in my bedrooms because I can now, kinda thing. So it's like almost like, okay, when they're not there, there's a bit higher sense of responsibility to do certain
yeah,
things. And then when they're there, okay, offload,
yeah,
right? Um, and I just found that an interesting, like, way that we communicate with our parents. When we were both out of the house, sister called every day,
mhm.
called my parents every day. I called them every 3, 4 days because I was like, "I didn't do anything. I went to school. I can tell you about that, but I didn't have any experiences." So I spent 4 days gathering experiences
Yeah,
to tell my parents, "Here are the experiences I've had in the past 4 days. I'll see you in 3 days when I call you again." And so, like, is there, like, a different level of attachment too that these older, younger siblings can have to their parents, and how does that manifest in their communication?
yeah, yeah, right? That's a really good question. And again, I think anything that we talk about will have so many different perspectives and ways that we can look at it.
Sure.
But for some reason, the word that keeps
Yeah.
coming to my mind is obligation. I want to ask you, do you feel obligated to call them every day or every other day, or you're kind of okay to call them every 3, 4 days?
I think even if I felt obligated, I didn't because I just knew that, like, um, I'm not going to be able to like, it would be and it has been, if my dad calls me every day, it's a 30-second conversation, less than 30 seconds. "How are you?" "Good." "Working." "What are you doing?" "No, I'm just driving to work." "Great." "Okay, bye." Done. So, like, there's never, like, an obligation to call them because I was like, "What am I gonna talk to them about if I call them?"
Yeah,
There was an obligation to call them, but no obligation to call them as frequently as my sister did.
yeah, yeah,
Unless it was like, "Oh, my sister's not calling them, maybe I call them." Once again, like, shifting of responsibilities in a sense is, like, when the I think the obligation arises when I feel a shift in responsibility to do something
mm,
versus, a more innate obligation to do something at the same level as my older sister.
yeah. Right, exactly. And I think in that communication piece, obligation plays a huge role. When children are communicating with their
Mhm,
parents, some children might feel more obligated to make that phone call every day because they are more nervous about the consequence of not communicating with their parents, right? If I don't call mom or dad, they're going to
mhm,
think that I'm not a good kid, I'm not an obedient kid, I don't love them, I don't care about them, right? So they might feel more
mhm,
um, consumed in that thought spiral versus some children might feel like it's okay if I don't call. Uh, with
yeah,
parentified children, they often do feel a higher obligation because if you think about it, since they were very young, what were they trying to do? Make mom and dad's life easier. So why is
mhm,
that going to change in their adulthood if they don't necessarily
right,
work through it, right? So even in their adulthood, even if they're far away, they might feel more obligated to call back home because again, they continue to feel like my ultimate job is to make life easier for my parents. And in Desi households, it's established very young that the more you talk to us, the more you connect with us, the better we feel about ourselves as parents, right? So that'd be one of the things that a
mhm,
parentified child would feel inclined to do. They may call back home more uh, out of obligation,
mhm,
out of wanting to make mom and dad feel good about
mhm,
themselves. Yeah.
mhm, mhm. Does that develop, like well, I guess before we go there,
Hmm.
is it fair to call attachment levels unhealthy or healthy?
I don't know, man.
'Cause it could manifest in, like, different ways, and I don't wanna generalize saying, "Oh, calling your parents every day is an unhealthy level of attachment." I don't think it is.
Yeah,
But I think I would I would wonder how that affects your attachment
yeah.
to your family too.
I generally just don't like healthy and unhealthy. I think that we, especially
Mhm,
as Desis, we kind of, I know I grew up learning to kind of think in extremes, right? So it's either healthy or unhealthy. I wasn't really taught to think more in the gray, where maybe it's not
mhm,
healthy and healthy. Maybe there's a third word, right? And to me, that
yeah,
third word is it's appropriate for the environment you grew up.
mhm,
So I think healthy and healthy just
yeah,
really depends on what is appropriate for you based on the environment
mhm,
you grew up in. So I think yes, in a clinical sense, attachment can be unhealthy or healthy. Um, and it's very nuanced. It depends on your situation. If you call your parents every single day and that doesn't cause you any distress, that isn't out of obligation, that isn't out of perfectionism, right? All those things. If it's just, I want to talk to my mom, I'm going to talk, that's great. That's fantastic. Even if you
Mhm.
call her 3 times a day and that just feels good to you,
Mhm.
then that's good. But
Yeah.
if you're doing something because of underlying shame, underlying guilt, underlying pressure, underlying obligation,
Mhm.
that's when we need to kind of unpack.
Yeah. Mm. I'm just gonna put this out there, Zora, what are we getting wrong when we have some of these conversations, right? Because we've tried for years to, like, start this
Yeah.
thing. We're like, "Hey, guys, let's talk about it." I know for a lot of people, we can only talk to our peers
Mm,
because it's not always a conversation you can have or feel comfortable having with your parent or the older generation. Weirdly enough, it's easier for me to talk about these things to anybody of my parents' generation who's not them than it is them, because then it feels like you're talking to them about a generalized topic versus if I talk to my parents about a topic that I don't want them to think like, "Oh, is he talking about this because we were like this?" Or whatever it is, right? I don't want a level of, like, accusation in that conversation, so it feels like, "Okay, cool. That auntie over there gets it. Let's talk." Right? My family friend, uncle and aunt here get it. Let's talk.
mm,
But not something that I particularly care to bring up with my
yeah.
parents. But I feel like there's something to be said about that thing.
Mhm.
But what is it that we're like that we've been getting wrong with this to where, hey, if we can address a couple of things, everybody's life could be better.
Yeah. Yeah. Rish, I really feel like it goes back to our initial conversation of shame. I think that there is so much trauma in a Desi person's history. We have
Mhm,
collectively, as a group of people, experienced oppression and trauma, and none of that was ever, for many, majority of us, none of that was worked through. And
mhm,
that has caused deep shame, deep fears,
mhm,
a complete disconnect from our sense of self. We,
mhm,
I feel like a lot of us Desis, we are fragments of what other people want us to be. We are not who we want to be. We don't even know what that means. For a lot of us, it's I'm whoever you want me to be, and you want me to be, and mom wants me to be, and aunt wants me to be, and my cousin and my children want me to be, right? So because of that
mhm.
history of trauma that we've experienced that was never kind of worked through, processed, we have created these
Right.
protective mechanisms, the defensiveness, the denying our children's life experience, the deep shame that we feel as parents, but we're too scared to face that shame because it's years and years worth of shame. We can't just feel it overnight,
Mhm,
right? It's so much to take.
mhm.
Um, so there's just so much there that we haven't
Yeah,
processed.
yeah.
So if we just process that, that would be great. That would be really helpful.
Right.
But that is such a difficult thing to do, you know?
Mhm.
As a 30-year-old, when I look back, like when I started therapy at the first time I went to therapy was 18, 19, right? When I had my first panic attack. To have to process the 18 years of my life that I didn't process was so hard. And
Yeah.
so when I think about our parents who haven't been in therapy, they're 60, 50, whatever, right? That's 50, 60 years of life that they would need to process. It's a lot.
Mhm,
But it would
mhm,
really require us to go back into our life experiences and close those tabs, to heal those parts of ourselves,
mhm,
to comfort and soothe those parts of ourselves that were invalidated, that were unacknowledged, that were traumatized, for us to then be
mhm,
able to show up for one another in a more authentic and open way without any underlying anger, resentment, shame, defensiveness, fear, whatever, you know? But it's a
mhm.
lot. It's a
Wow.
lot.
The guys, I'm gonna make a tech analogy, and I just have to, just because you brought it up. When you made the analogy or the metaphor of all these traumatic experiences being like open tabs in you of things that you haven't closed, that really struck a chord with me, not in the emotional healing sort of way, but, like, when you have a lot of tabs on your computer and it's just running and you haven't closed it, your computer's running
That's
bad.
right.
Your brain's running rough, like, your body's running rough.
Mhm.
And so just closing those tabs and processing those tabs, I guess,
It's an
is
analogy that I use a lot in my therapy with my
yeah,
clients
I
is
like it.
you you don't know how many tabs are open because you can't see them. They're draining
Mhm.
battery. And
Yeah.
so at the end of
That's so good. Wow.
at the end of the day, you're like, why am I at 10%? I didn't even use my phone because you had all these
Mhm.
tabs open that you couldn't see were open.
Wow. There's a there's something that I've been trying to make people understand, at least in my sphere, and I'd have this conversation with my wife a lot because she has a more standard job. And she's a resident, she goes to work, hard labor, talks to a lot of people, comes home late at night, she just wants to sometimes turn her brain off, social media, eat, watch some TV. If she has some work, we'll do some work or we'll go to bed,
Mhm,
something like that.
mhm.
But a lot of the times in the past, like, her nights have been a lot of just this
Yeah.
stuff, and scrolling, and I knew over the past few years, like, okay, I understand how social media is rough for us and bad for us in many ways, and, if we're just, like, blindly consuming it, it can be bad for us, but I didn't really understand what was happening there,
Mm.
and this ties into your thing, I promise. So I was once again listening to Dr. K, just because he's, like, the dude who makes sense to me in my brain, and he explained why we feel so tired
Mm,
during a day, like, say it's a weekend, and you didn't do anything, you just kinda sat, you watched TV, you scroll on your phone, you watched TV, maybe you did some chores, you chilled, you relaxed because you had a hard week beforehand, so you physically relaxed,
mhm,
but you were scrolling a lot, and by the end of the day, you're like, "Why am I so tired?" You hit, like, 2 p.m., "Why am I so tired? I've done nothing today.
mhm,
Why am I so tired?" And he said, "Well, it's because a lot of the scrolling and the stuff that we do is causing us to peak and valley our emotions and or feel different emotions
mm,
so quickly.
mm,
And so an entire 8 hours worth of emotions you might feel in a day gets felt in, like, the span of 25 to 30 seconds, maybe a minute.
mm,
And that's very emotionally draining.
mhm,
Um, where I found this analogy to kind of coincide with yours is that thing about, like, you have all these experiences inside of you that are constantly coming up and coming down as maybe, say, if you're living at home,
mhm,
and living at home is exhausting
mhm.
because you haven't processed these
Yeah.
things, and so you just go about your day, you're interacting with your family, whoever is living with you,
Mhm,
but these emotions insides of you are like, "Okay, this emotion is responding in this way to this interaction.
mhm.
Why am I feeling anger? Why am I feeling annoyance? Why am I feeling frustration? Nothing's gone wrong with the day.
Yeah.
Why am I feeling angst? Why am I feeling anxiety?" And so in one day, you feel like 10 different emotions because you haven't processed those experiences,
Mhm,
and they just exhaust you.
mhm,
And when you're exhausted, you don't wanna work to manage anything.
mhm,
I feel like it makes those emotions even present and manifest themselves even greater.
mhm,
You lash out,
mhm,
you, like, snap at somebody or whatever it is, and you're like, "That's not me.
mhm,
What's happening?"
mhm.
I feel like that's what I used to be somebody who just bottled up everything, and at some point, it would just tip,
Yeah.
um, and that manifested itself in not talking,
Mhm,
very
mhm,
stone-faced. Like, I did not like to put expressions on my face. Till this day now, I find it very exhausting to express my face, and so even if we're on podcast or I'm talking to somebody, my face is just very
mhm,
this, poker faced,
mhm,
and I'm like, it's so tiring to, like, move my face. I manifest that fast as something like, I hated crying,
mhm,
but then when I got really emotionally, like, tipped over, cried a lot, got it out of my system in a sense,
mhm,
didn't really get it out of my
mhm,
system, um, and then kept bottling. So my sister said, "You really need therapy, like, you bottle things up inside and you have a lot of things in that bottle, and you just keep adding to it,
mhm.
and you need to, like, you need to get it out." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Going back to what you said about there's tabs that we don't even think we have open.
Yeah.
When I started therapy and I would talk to the therapist, I found behaviors that I was doing, which were learned behaviors based on experiences that I just blacked out on until we talked about it. I was like, "Oh, this thing did happen at this point
Mhm.
growing up," and it's not always parents. Some of my things I've been going through speech therapy or speech coaching, which is a different type of thing,
Mhm.
but it's like, oh, things in school that affected the way I talk,
Yep.
or things growing up that affected the way I behave and that I present myself to people,
Mm.
or things with, like, friends that presented the way that I do and all this stuff, right? But I was like, "I forgot about these things
Mhm.
because you just, like, you forgive and you think you forgive and forget.
Yeah.
Instead, what is a very alliterative way to say it? You bury and bottle up,
Mm.
right? You don't forgive and forget. And so, I guess talk therapy is one way of processing these things. Are there other ways that we can process these
Mhm.
experiences, traumatic events, etc.?
Yeah. Well, I do want to kind of comment on your experience that you were sharing about. One thing that I do often, well, I had to learn as a therapist myself was oftentimes suppressing our emotions is not a conscious thing. And this is where I go back to how my journey with mental health started. Our mind is magical. It is so complex, so
Mhm,
magical that the things that it does to protect us is insane. So, a big part of us not
mhm,
remembering things in our adulthood is our brain trying to protect us from those traumatic experiences. That is
mhm,
a direct way that our brain responds to trauma is by
mhm,
suppressing memories that are too big for us to process at that age. Because children, we are dependent on the adults around us, right? So if the adults around us are mean to us, and that could mean parents, but also, like you said, our teachers, but also our friends, right? As children, we don't have, and I'm talking like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like we don't have a lot of power
yeah,
to make our own decisions and stuff like that. So we're dependent on our community and our society to kind of help us out. But if the community and society that we're dependent on is not treating us well and we can't fight back, what are we going to do? We're going to take all of those experiences and suppress them. Because I
mhm,
would rather, and this is the subconscious mind, right? We're not consciously thinking it, but
yeah,
subconsciously, your mind is saying, I would rather normalize all of this than make this a traumatic experience. Because if I make this a traumatic experience, then how am I going to function? I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be angry. So I might as well normalize these experiences and make it seem like this happens to everybody. So a big part of like those aha moments that we have in kind of therapy where we're like, crap, I didn't remember that. That was your brain trying to protect you. Because in that moment when that thing happened to
mhm,
you, you did not have the capacity to see it for what it was, to see it as a traumatic
mhm,
experience. So your brain molded it, changed it into whatever you needed to believe it was so you could function,
yeah,
which blows my mind with how wonderful our mind is and how protective it is of us. But yeah.
yeah. I think of the phrase, "It is what it
Mm,
is," when you bring up how we normalize
mm,
things, and I've come to really dislike that phrase
mm,
because it I whenever somebody says, "It is what it is," to me, that's now like, that's my little notification of, I think you're just minimizing or reducing this
mm,
thing, and if you feel bad about this thing, feel bad about it, let's talk
yeah.
about it. If you feel angry, you feel upset, you feel frustration, let's actually talk about it now. Um 'Cause I used to be an "it is what it is" kinda guy as well,
Mm-hmm.
until I really sat with that and was like, "No, it could be different.
Mm-hmm.
It could not be what it is."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after hearing you speak about how we normalize a lot of the things in order to try and function, quote, unquote, "normally," which I think at this point we should really have a conversation about what normal is, but maybe that's for a different podcast session because that's its own
Yeah.
topic. it's just saying, like, it is what it is to everything just feels like doing yourself a disservice.
Mm,
Um, you know, politics, it is what it is. Healthcare system, it is what it is. Monetary economic system, it is what it
mhm,
is. My family drama, it is what it is.
mhm,
The relationship I have with my friends, it is what it is.
mhm.
I hate my job, it is what it is. Like, everything is just like an "it is what it is" kinda
Yeah,
thing, and it really could not be that
yeah.
if we stop saying that first.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this statement, it is what it is, comes with this underlying sense of helplessness that I can't change my situation, so I might as well accept it. Um, First, I think that we have a lot more power to change our situation than we think we do, especially as adults. But because we have that inner child that felt so helpless, sometimes we forget that we are full
Mhm,
adults who can change our environment. Our inner child kind of takes over us. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a big childhood trauma therapist. So that's a big part of my work is I go
mhm,
deep into that childhood, those childhood experiences. But I think there's a lot of who we are as adults is because of those experiences, and we all have an
right.
inner child. And when we are spiraling, when we are ruminating, when we are anxious, there's something that the inner child is telling us, something that
Mhm,
they must have felt that we have not acknowledged, right? Um, but yeah, I think that, it is what it is has this kind of undertone of helplessness. Like I can't change my situation,
mhm,
might as well accept it. But I think what we don't understand, especially as they see something that we're not taught, is that you can acknowledge that this sucks and that this may be your reality for a little bit, right?
mhm,
When we say it is what it is, we forget to acknowledge that this sucks. We, like you said, downplay,
yeah,
minimize that this sucks. But these two can coexist. We don't have to just say it is what it is and move on. We can acknowledge how hard this is, how difficult this is, that this makes me angry, sad, whatever, while also sitting in the discomfort of all of these feelings because we are aware that this may be what it needs to
mhm,
be for a little bit.
yeah. A phrase that I have to tell myself a lot of the times now is 2 things can be true at the same time,
Mhm.
which is something that I did learn from therapy, and while I don't like to quote unquote "therapy speak," I think that's not therapy speak. It is a very good, like, mantra to kind of do because when I have conversations with people, when someone's giving me feedback on something that I've done, I like to say the word feedback. It could be, like, something else for somebody else. Uh, I used to go to, "Man, I suck,"
Mm.
and then take the feedback. "Oh, that feedback hurts. Oh, it's just daggers. Oh, it hurts,"
Mhm.
all this stuff. And then I'm like, "Oh, well, I fucking suck.
Mm.
I guess I'll just go fix that stuff now." And once it's fixed for them, it'll be whatever it is. And once I started saying 2 things can be true at the same time, I'll tell myself, um, "I am enough, and I can still be better. I can still be better and improve,
Mm.
but my baseline is now I'm enough, not I'm insufficient."
Mm.
So, 2 things being true at the same time can be, "This is fine." Sorry, "This is how it is, but this is also not fine."
Yeah.
Or, "This is how it is, but I don't like
Right,
it."
it hurts. Right, I
Yeah,
wish I didn't have to go through this.
right.
Acceptance can coexist with pain. That's another thing that I've been thinking about making a video about this is we often confuse gratitude and silence. In the Desi community, we think that if you are silent, you are grateful. But the minute you speak up, you are ungrateful,
Mhm,
right? That's a kind of theme that I see in
mhm,
the Desi community is if you speak up, if you say, hey, that was wrong, you shouldn't have done that, especially when it's an authority figure on the other side, like a parent or an aunt or uncle, you will
right.
immediately be called ungrateful. But no, you can be extremely grateful for everything the adults have
Yeah,
done for you and also speak up, right? Silence is not,
mhm,
we kind of equate it to gratitude, but no,
yeah.
these two things are separate and they can coexist. Yeah.
If, if an authority figure like that, say it's a
Mhm.
parent, and the parent's like, "Oh, my child is acting out." What does acting out really look like for us? For the children in this situation, right? Because I feel like it's not like we don't act out in terms of we yell, we punch things, we throw things, we break things,
Mhm.
right? But how does acting out really manifest, um, in us? I don't know if you have the answer to that. That's just a question that I've had for a while that I haven't found the answer to is really,
Mm.
how it what it looks like.
So I'm gonna probably need some clarity. Acting out in childhood and adulthood, but what do you mean?
I think, like, maybe in childhood, like, growing up and a parent's like, "Oh, you're acting out."
Mm,
And and, that probably manifests itself in some behaviors into adulthood. But usually you hear the term acting out with children. You don't really hear it with adults. Sometimes it's just like, "Oh, they're weird," or, "Oh, they're just not being grateful or being respectful," or whatever it is. But I do wonder if acting out looks different. Like, this is acting out like me going silent and not talking to anybody? Is acting out like, um, I start not doing everything that I'm told? Even though I'm not, like, yelling at somebody and not really making a scene, I'm just not doing what I'm
mm.
told. What is acting out what is like, I guess I wonder what that means because I hear it enough.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The first thought that comes to my mind is I don't think there's a clinical definition of
Mhm,
acting out because it depends person to person. I think
mhm,
sometimes in a lot of households, acting out is whatever is outside of the parent's capacity to deal with. So if the
mhm,
kid is crying and the parent can deal with that because they have the capacity to deal with it, they will not call it acting out. But if the kid is crying too much and the parents don't have the capacity, parents are going to be like, they're acting out. So I think what we describe as acting out sometimes depends on the parent's capacity. Whatever is outside of their
mhm,
capacity, they might just call that acting out. But it really depends person to person. To me, it would be something that is uncharacteristic of that person. So if that, like, for example, I am typically very vocal, very communicative. I do not prescribe to the I'm gonna hold it in and sulk. I want to just say it.
mhm.
So if I go quiet, I'm acting out because that is
Yeah,
uncharacteristic of me. So that's how I think about it sometimes.
interesting.
But yeah, it really depends person to person. I don't think there is any specific
Mhm.
threshold of, okay, that kid is
Yeah,
acting out. It depends on that kid's personality.
yeah. Wow. So this has been a great conversation. I'm, like, reeling from everything that we've talked about because I think it we've already talked about that. I've changed my mind on a couple of things while talking here. This is giving me a couple of new frames to to think about life with, new lenses to see things with. But where can people find you if they wanna, keep up with what you're doing?
Therapy, therapy. I don't remember if I have two Y's or one Y in my username, but if you just look up therapy,
Okay.
therapy on TikTok, I often post about
Yeah.
Desi mental health and just stuff that comes to my mind when it comes to Desi mental health. I have my email in my bio as well. So if you're looking for a therapist, I can only practice in Georgia. So if you're looking for a therapist in Georgia, Desi therapist in Georgia, you can reach out to me. And I have my email in my bio. Yeah, those would be the two places.
Great. Great. And then one last question for you. I do ask everybody this who comes on the podcast. It's a very vague question, intentionally vague. But if there's one piece of advice you wanna give to somebody listening today,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Mm. It's what I said to you earlier. Get closer to yourself. Really build a relationship with yourself. Get
Mhm.
curious about yourself.
Mhm. You know, like, taking yourself out on a date has been this, like, small little not small, it's now become big, like, thing to do. I'm taking myself out on a solo date or whatever it is, right? Go to a coffee shop just by yourself, go have dinner just by lunch just by yourself, go to a movie by yourself. That's just a nope, that's gonna be a story for a different time. We're not gonna go there. Awesome. Zora, thank you once again for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it.